Us, everyone. Happy New Year. I trust everyone's well. Thanks for everyone's support in 2020. We're back 2021, the Kyokushin Shuffle. And I said to everyone I was going to focus this year on coaches across all of martial arts. So very excited to have Coach Rich Fogarty from Newcastle. Rich, how are you? Thank you so much for your time.
No worries. Thank you for having me. I'm going good up here in Newcastle.
Very good, very good. So thanks again. I wrote to you via Instagram. You professionally wrote back, and I thank you for that because I'm very excited to have a chat to you about a whole bunch of things. Follow you across our Instagram as such, but you've had a couple of busier months. But just to let the listeners a bit in your background and also up to where you are now, because we're going to go deep dive into this coaching side of how you are.
Yep, yeah. How it all started for me is basically, I suppose, the childhood growing up. Like I feel like all martial arts when they take upon martial arts, they always have a story of how they started it. Mine was basically, there was a little bit. It wasn't just the love of martial arts to start with. I didn't really know martial arts. I used to hate fighting to a point because of a few little child abuse things that used to happen to me. And once I got through that sort of traumatic part of my childhood, and then funnily enough, that was in Newcastle back in the 70s as well. So I've made a whole loop around the world and then back to the same place that it all started from. So that was a bit of a trip of a journey. But and then I was obviously dealing with that as a youngster, and then going into high school. And then in primary school, and when you got red hair and freckles, you're not the most popular dude in school back then. Sure. These days it's the trendy thing.
That's it.
Left. But back in the day, red hair and freckles, and I wasn't the most easy to get along with. I was always very cheeky and trying to just avoid people in general.
Sure.
And I sort of got sick and tired of having to deal with, I suppose, the bullies and the abuse I was dealing with. So I just sort of, I just decided to go, and I come across an actual friend that I was in primary school with, and the Kyokushin people would know him, with John Hawford. John Hawford back in the day was, one of the Kyokushin probably champions, I think 6 or 7 times in Australia.
Yes.
And so I met him in primary school in Tamworth. And then we spent a year together just mucking around playing as friends. And then he darted off and went to another school for a couple of years. And then it wasn't until, years 8 or 9. And then I sort of crossed his path again. And this time I was at a kickboxing show that was in Tamworth as well. So I went along to that and watched him. And then, I sort of, obviously he was a bit of a beast, whether it was Kyokushin or kickboxing back in the day. And then, he had the opportunity. He said, come along to the gym and start training with us. And I think Sensei Mark Tyson back then was our Sensei. He was under John, I think in Bondi Junction, John Taylor. So it all stemmed down from that in the little town of Tamworth when we started our little Kyokushin journey from that.
How exciting. There you go. Thanks for sharing that.
That's pretty much the first time I walked into the Kyokushin. So that was the first time.
Well, that's a nice little segue towards, the rest of what's occurred. And I guess, like I said, we could tap into the past as such, but this is to really, for my sake and for many, to utilize your time and your expertise and your experience and all your methods as such. I know you can't reveal everything. It's not about that, but it's the angle I wanted to start off with was, you've influenced so many across combat sports. Where was that moment that you started to go, shit, I think this is where I'm heading, or I think this is where I'm going to go, or, was the coaching trait in you a long time ago?
Yeah, I don't know if the coaching trait was in me a long time ago. I think because I finished fighting when I was 31, I think it was. I was sort of done like a 12-year period from until I was 31, and fighting obviously Kyokushin tournaments, ring karate back in the day, boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, wherever there was sort of like a fight that I could compete in, then I was just sort of put my hand up, because back in those days, there's a lot of, we were growing up with the Sam Grecos and the Stan Lombardidis, and like now I'm close friends with these guys, and they were my idols back then. So
Sure.
obviously following those guys, you want to be like them. So you're like, yeah, no worries, I want to fight, And I seen Sam Greco back in the day come from Kyokushin into kickboxing and then to K1, and it was just like, wow, this is just crazy. I want to just join in and just follow this journey of what martial arts is. And I think once I finished the fight, my fight career, so to speak, I couldn't do it full time back then, because obviously there wasn't any money to just stop everything and then coach, because one, I had no experience in coaching, and I didn't really know what coaching was all about. All I knew was, how to train to fight and how to fight to my best of knowledge from who taught me. And then I think it was, who I fought under my last few fights was Joe Hilton. He's in the Sunshine Coast, and he was from Zendu-Kai background, but he's very, very good, like world-class Muay Thai coach, Warren Ellison, Kurt Finlayson. So he taught a lot of great fighters. And so I thought, once I started sort of finishing my fight career, and I thought, I'm over getting banged up, and I'm over the soreness, and I'm 31, and I just had a newborn daughter, and I sort of had to make money at the same time as train. So, and I started a few companies out of nothing, and they sort of started to grow pretty fast, which has still allowed me to do training mornings and nights. And back in those days, Joe Hilton would train at 5 in the morning. The buzz would go, so you had to be there at 4:30, pads on, ready to do pads with the fighters. So I sort of just started to be his right-hand man for so long. And even to this day, people say, who's your biggest influence in coaching? And I would probably say Joe Hilton up on the Sunshine Coast with the Sunshine Coast Thai Boxing Centre, because he had such an impact in my life, not just as a fighter, because he was so ruthless when he was training you. Like he knew how to get the best out of you, but at the same time, when you were beside him, learning him and watching him do pads, and this guy, he was 40, 50 years old, and I could, just the way he would be up at 4:30 every single morning without fail, like, it made you have to be there at 4:30 without fail. If you wanted to be a great coach, that's what influenced me to go, I've got to be up at 4:30. I've got to be at that gym, ready to go pads at 5 o'clock. And that's really how it all instilled into me, into one, watching him do pads with Muay Thai fighters, and how just good he was, and how he brought the best out in fighters that would first come to the gym in the mornings. And then you would think, oh, they haven't got much talent. But once Joe's finished with them after, 6 months, 12 months, they were fighting top ranked Muay Thai fighters, and I thought, man, this dude is, not only is he older than me but geez, I tell you what, what a weapon for an older dude, and what a passion and motivation to do it. And it just made you have to get up in the morning. And if you slept in, you would be feeling like you let him down. That's how it got with me. So
yeah, that's a good coach too. You haven't done much but sleep in, but the whole thing could just come down on you, hey? Yeah,
100%. But it never did for him. He talked the talk and he walked the walk, and that's what really inspired me and has inspired me right until this day. Even just recently, the fighters I've had up in Newcastle, when they messaged me to train, I said, this is the way you've got to train when you're here. You've got to train my way. There isn't no, we'll take a day here and a day there. Like, if you're coming up, you've got to put some serious time into how I train. And I was lucky enough that happened, but that all was instilled with Joey Hilton.
Well, awesome for you sharing that. Thank you heaps, because it allows me to build something from here, which is, to many out there that are listening on that coaching level, we've all been influenced by that one or two, three persons. So you've channeled that energy, you've channeled all that, to an extent, and then you have become something, or you were on your path as, you know how they say, you got to have your own way of coaching as well. You know, you're going to take traits from certain people or certain things,
Yeah.
you know, how did you go? How were you transitioning that as well?
Yeah, it's just, I was a big believer after getting the opportunity, not just to be a Muay Thai coach, but really taking upon looking at outside the box, how I was going to become better as a coach.
Correct.
And I'm a big believer in, you can learn a lot from everyone. You know, you can. I don't believe once people start, especially coaches, start to think, okay, I'm a coach, I know everything, and it's my way. That's it. That's where you stop. You stop on a certain level, which other coaches keep growing on. And I think that's what sort of opened my eyes, and that's how it branched off from Muay Thai, and then the Jeff Fenech and my brother sort of into the boxing side of things to learn that side of things. And then I spent, you know, a good traveling 6 or 7 years over at Jackson Winklejohn, over in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with a lot of not just great fighters and humans, but a lot of great coaches as well, which are still coaching there today. And, you know, I've still got a great rapport and a friendship with them. And that sort of broadened my scope of learning, I suppose you could say, as a coach.
But see, you know, a key thing you said there, you took the initiative in a way, you know, and that's the part of coaching, right? Where you have to go left or right, and you know, it's your flavor now, and your initiative in going to Jackson Winklejohn, Jeff Fenech, and these high profile, again, respectable combat people, you now started to mold into your own, you know, way of coaching. When was the moment there? Was it an athlete that, you know, triggered it, or was it you going, listen, this is something now, you know, to become one of the top combat trainers in the world like yourself? You know, how were you starting to feel what you were putting together was awesome, you know?
I think just the motivation factor, the motivation of how much I was learning from so many different people.
Yeah.
To originally then go, okay, on the whole scheme of things, I really don't know that much. But when I travel and when I'm learning from Coach Greg Jackson or Brandon Gibson, or even seeing things like Jason Perillo, fighters like Bones, Holly Holm, Izzy Martinez for the wrestling, and like wrestling's got nothing to do with stand-up, but just his methods of training. And
correct.
You know, a lot of Australian coaches, as I said, Joey Hilton with Jeff Fenech. There's so many coaches I've crossed paths with, and I've been blessed that I can just sit there and watch, you know, and even simple things when I first got to America. And I was more in links with America in Jackson Winklejohn through Kyle Noak, who's, you know, a great friend, and I used to do some striking with him when he used to live in America. And, you know, I was privileged when I first got there, and I'd first met Bones and Brandon Gibson and Winklejohn. They would go and do their striking sessions, and no one was allowed in there. But Brandon obviously invited me along and said, no one's allowed to watch these sessions, but come along because you're here and we respect you as a friend. Come along and sit in on one of our sessions. And just, I don't know, it was, you know, at the start, it's like, you're a coach just learning the first steps of coaching, but at the same time, you're a fanboy of not just the fighter, but looking at these coaches and just going, wow, look at, you know, have a look where I'm sitting right now. People would probably pay thousands of dollars to just sit in one of those sessions to watch. And I'm lucky enough to get that, you know, opportunity to do it for free. And obviously just being genuine, like really being genuine and trying to be real as possible when it comes to the martial arts coaching is you got to be real. You got to be accountable, and you got to admit that you want to learn, you know, and that's what opened a lot of doors for me, is being willing to learn, you know, is going, okay, yes, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn, which then I got to ride on a lot of coattails of a lot of great coaches, and even to this day.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, and in just saying that, one of the words there that just went boom was learn. You know, you're still learning, you know, and my theme behind this is, you know, I did an ebook called Forever the Student. and this time I'm going to do one forever the coach, because you're forever the coach, right? And,
100%.
you know, so, you know, in learning, there then comes a moment, you know, in education, via a profession, you know, you do university 4 years, you've got criteria, prerequisites, syllabus in martial arts. This part of coaching for me and for many other senseis, instructors out there, how, you know, the part of, well, there's a coaching course, or there's this course. How were you starting to, were you looking at, you know, in those, was that something that was there for you to dabble with, or were you just consistently going, you know, front and center with these, you know, live, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, learning firsthand from pretty much learning raw. As I didn't have this is the 2-week course you do. This is how you're going to learn how to hold pads. This is how you're going to, this is called a right cross, left hook, uppercut. Why we're doing that. And a lot of, you know, it's not taken away from any coaches these days, because I admire anyone who's trying to better themselves as a coach. I've chosen and I've wanted to go, okay, I'm going to spend literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to travel the world over the last 12 years to be around some of the biggest names in combat sport. And you know, I could have probably bought 2 houses with the amount of money I've spent traveling over. You know, I've done 48 trips to America since 2008, and that's to pretty much more to Albuquerque and LA and places, Vegas and places like that. But you know, Asia, you know, a lot of the Asia with the Muay Thai and Bangkok's and other trips over there as well. But it's just a lot of money that's been spent, but I was willing to spend it because I knew this was my life.
You've knocked it on the head there. There's no real $1,000 course to give you what you need. Yeah, and
but you know, saying that, like these coaches that are giving out these courses, this is what's turning over the money in our community to help other fighters and whatever else. So I don't, you know, I always get the coaches who are doing courses or doing their pad holding at their gym, and they'll come and call me, and I'll do PTs with them. Right. Sometimes it's a bit ironic. I think to myself, when I finished in year 9 at school, and then, you know, I went off and done whatever I had to do. These guys who have been through uni or been through school or been through all these, you know, the whole qualifications, will come back to me in regards to how to learn to do the basics of basics, you know. But but that's, you know, like, they've got the time. They've got 2 weeks or 4 weeks to learn to make money, where mine's been a bit more of a slower process. I've had 10 or 12 years of spending a lot of money, and now I get to a point and people go, hit me on my website and go, oh, you know, I just want a PT, and you know, they look at what my sort of videos or photos are on my website, but they, you know, I want to do an hour, and I say, no worries, it's $100 per hour. And I still get the ones who go, oh, geez, that's, you know, that's a bit steep. You know, my old pad holder, he used to only charge me $50 for an hour. I go, yeah, but he wouldn't have spent a third of what I've spent and what I've learned. But, you know, in saying that, I just sort of pretty much tell them the truth, and they can look from, you know, either Google me or find some sort of reputable case that they want to come and learn from. So that's what it is.
So that's awesome, because now I've got a couple of questions before we get into, you know, your past couple of years in regards to the athletes and so on. But on a coaching level here, because of combat, you get the certain PT and the clients that you facilitate and support just in the training method of holding mitts and fundamentals. You will get a student client that wants to be a weapon, you know. You know. Then you've got the elite, the absolute elite, creme de la creme, most dangerous / influential fighters in the world, and the multiple hats that a coach wears, you know. How have you gone in that journey, Coach?
I think the part that's
or a tip for many of them out there.
I've been a fighter, so I know a good part of the emotions that you go through. And I'm not saying I was the greatest fighter ever going around. I was just very competitive, and I had a lot of inner demons that I wanted to get out through martial arts or through fighting. But you know, in saying that, Oh, it's just a it's just one of those things where I was fighting and then I went to coaching. So I sort of took all those and after a few years of dealing with the top level fighters, it doesn't matter whether they're top level or at the bottom levels, just starting, but all fighters, because this sport is a very lonely sport, they will go through the same emotions, the same journey, the same headaches, crying, laughter, counselling. Man, there's so many avenues to this fight game as for a fighter and a coach. If you really had to put all the caps on and then put a money value on it, you would never coach again, because people wouldn't be able to afford $1,000 for 4 minutes, because that's probably what the fee would be, you know.
No, yeah, 100% there.
That's where you got to own it and go, wow, you got to do all the hard work and the physical stuff for very little reward in regards to money wise. But it's not really, the coaching's never been money wise for me. Yes, it's nice when you cross paths with some of the extreme athletes who can afford to pay for the top stuff, and you go, wow, this is good, I'm getting paid to what I love to do. But a lot of the stuff that I do and I have done is for free.
Sure.
So I've done, youth kids at school, 10 disengaged kids. They've come into the gym because I've got my own foundation, the Ringside Youth Foundation.
Awesome.
So I've used that as a branch off from whatever coaching I do, and the schools will actually pay for them to come and train. And these kids are disengaged, but when they can see, and some of these kids sort of, how I hook them in is they look at who I've trained as idols. And when you're looking at your idols and then you're looking at someone in front of you who's actually coached your idol or your friend or whatever it may be, that's when you get their attention. That's when they're like, wow, he's coached this person, he must be good. Yeah, even though I may not be good. I may be just, friends, or I may need good in certain stages, but they take notice, and that's been the non-funding part and the motivation behind really the coaching side for me. Like, I've loved coaching teenagers. I've loved coaching young kids to see what they can really produce. And I mean, as all coaches say, you'll see, we see thousands of people walk through that door and we see thousands leave, and we only see the one or twos that have that killer instinct, that something that happened to them or the motivation they have. They're the ones who stay, and they're the ones who carry on to be great champions,
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome for you sharing that and giving us all perspective on what you see as well, and that's important. And so I appreciate that. Coach, there's a beautiful photo of you and a special person / in combat sports that I see and I go, wow, what a moment that would have been. And you've got a couple, to be honest. You've met a lot of people, and you've been in touch with. Sometimes
I think back these days. I mean, there was a lot of trips over to the US, and again, a lot of it's because of Jeff Fenech, and I've been personal friends for him for nearly, I would say, probably 15 years. My brother was best friends with him and still is, and I've sort of just jagged along with that sort of brotherhood friendship. But Jeff opened up a lot of doors for us, not just in Australia, but overseas, with a lot of high-ranking athletes, but celebrities, and we've done a lot of traveling, a lot of crazy partying,
yes,
but also coaching too. So the opportunities I've had to meet some of the guys that I used to watch on TV and idolize, and to sit with them, to talk to them, to know them personally, and it's just it has been a bit of a crazy ride, and that's why the coaching, I find that's just as my journey. But a lot of people who look at the people who I've met or the people who I coach or something, it's like anything. When looking in, everyone's like, wow, that's, I'd love to do that in my life. That'd be me. And I've even had some of the crazy coaches who have, used and abused their privilege to try and, they think they want to live my life, and then they get to realize that my life ain't probably what they thought it was.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I have been very blessed, not only to have two beautiful children that I raised, my son and daughter, but have the privilege of and the opportunities that I've had to travel over the world and sit with some of the greatest athletes.
Has there been a moment, you know, Mike Tyson and all these types of other people that you've got, you know, I use the word, my listeners I know the word I use, which is nuggets, and there could be a conversation that you're having and then you just go into a bit of that was a moment of thanks for sharing, you know, as I like to gesture it because I see those nuggets, you know, Jackson Winklejohn, John Bon Jones, Holly Holm, you know, and again, they're sitting there for everyone out there it's after a session, it's within that moment of pre-fight. It's, you know, Mark Hunt is, you know, your last 2 months, you know, for a while helping him, but we'll get to him in a minute. Those moments, how have you, what's one that you could share with us that makes people appreciate, I guess, all the investment, the time and things? I'll put you on the spot because you're going to do there's so many, but
I have got plenty, and I could probably go on, you know, with certain moments, as you say, after training, during training, and, you know, sometimes holding pads for someone, and I'm just thinking to myself, look who I'm holding pads for. Look who I'm coaching, or look who I'm working with, and even just for the argument's sake of, they've asked me, can you hold a few pads for me, coach? And just think to myself, these guys actually asked me to hold pads. I'm just not buzzing. But I would probably say the pinnacle of my life, other than my 2 children being born, was sitting in Kentucky with Muhammad Ali at his house in Kentucky, Louisville. And it was a few years before he passed. That I got the opportunity with Lonnie, his wife and his family, and my brother. We travelled over there together, and just, I don't know, just even though he wasn't at his normal best of what I used to grow up and watch him talking and, you know, boxing and all that sort of stuff, but man, just the light in that guy's life, that as soon as you enter a room with him in it, it was just like the tingles you got because of. You just automatically, it's, you know how you see those movies and someone touches something and all, it goes back into their memories, their history, their past, and you just go, holy good, like it was just so much. But just sitting with Ali, and, you know, when he was sort of there, just talking to him, and he was at a state where he wasn't talking too much. You know, he'd have his nap and then he'd wake up again, and then Lennox Lewis walked in, you know, for lunch, and we're just doing, oh man, this is just crazy times. And sitting there talking to Lennox as well, you know, like really sitting on the lounge at Muhammad Ali's place, talking just real talk, you know, person to person with Lennox Lewis was such a trip as well. But just shaking Muhammad Ali's hand, being in his lounge room with his family, and we all just sitting there chatting, and it was just like, you know, like being in the presence of a God, you know. It was literally like that word gets thrown around with a lot of sports and athletes, but to sit there and say, it was like I was sitting with God in humanity, in the boxing, who really stood for himself and be as real person as he could be. That was a buzz.
Unreal. Thank you for sharing that. I knew that was there, and I thought you might bring that one up, which is great. I appreciate it. You know, as a coach, you know, in regards to, like you just said, then, you know, the moments occur in all different ways, and you have, obviously, as a coach, so many hats in regards to. My Shian would say I'm a you know, mental wellness coach. I'm a psychologist. I'm a doctor.
Man, 100%.
Right
100%.
Now you're, and where I'm alluding to is the different, let's put it as projects or clients or athletes that you're working with, how you then have to transition in a way, the moment that you got the call from Mark Hunt, and he's a UFC, MMA, K1 legend, striking XYZ, but now the specific sport that he has asked you to train him for is a massive event, the biggest one in Australia, pay-per-view, not long ago against Paul Gallen. Can you walk us through, again, I said you don't need to share everything, but in a way for many to see how you approached it, built your 8 weeks, 12 weeks, you know, that type of angle would be unreal.
10 months in the end, 10 months.
Sorry, 10 months.
Through COVID and man.
Because it went back and forth, didn't it?
It was March. It was March. The camp was supposed to start, and then May was supposed to be the fight.
Okay.
Then COVID kept hitting, and the date just kept changing and changing and changing. But I was in Hawaii at that point, And I'd gone for a trip over there to see a very good friend of mine, Leif Robertson, who owns the Boar's Nest in Hawaii on the North Shore.
Wow.
Kai Garcia, who's one of the watermen, and all the RVCA crew, that like just the RVCA family.
Unreal.
Which is just, that RVCA family is just, it's just a community of everything: artists, surfers, fighters.
Yeah.
It's just everyone. If you're a part of RVCA family, or you're a part of Friends of RVCA, it's like you're in this, modern day gang. It's not a gang. It's a brotherhood, sisterhood. It's amazing. So I had the opportunity to travel there, and then I was sitting over there, and Mark had messaged me on Messenger or something and said, because I've known Mark for like 20 years.
Sure.
And back in the day, I used to be around the fight scene in Melbourne, and Mark used to fight down there as well, and then over the K1 and everything else. But I knew him personally for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of messaged and said, "Oh, hey, Rich," or we call each other Filthy, for other personal reasons. But Filthy, when do you get back? When are you back in Newcastle? And at that point, COVID hadn't hit, so I was like, "Oh well, end of April, I'm finished here. Well, I'm going to be finishing up here, and I'm flying back home then." He said, "All right, I want you to do the corner, like do me corner, because I'm signing Gallon fight, and I want you to come and train." And I was like, "Yeah, no worries." And he said he's going to move up to Newcastle, which he did. Got a place up here, and then so once that sort of arranged itself, I flew back in, and he met me up here, and then we started, as say, March was supposed to be the fight camp start, because May we're going to fight. So once that sort of, as soon as the camp started, it was like COVID hit, so it was like the whole world was shut down. It was a pretty bizarre feeling, because you're just about to start fight camp. The next minute, the whole world's closed, and you're like, "Whoa, what's going on?" But because I'm not a huge believer of what, certain things, it's a super flu and all the rest of it that goes on with it. And yes, it hits elderly and hits all the rest of it. But I sort of said, to go back home. And he was, I think the big fellow was like a 150 kilos at that stage. He hadn't fought 3 years, and just obviously eating KFC, whatever else he loves to do. And then, so he was about 150 kilo, and then just come up and we started training. But then I said, "You can either go home or you can stay here. Either way, I'm going to be training morning and night anyway." So he just said, no, I've got to lose weight. I want to start now, and we'll just train until the fight. So that was March, and then we'll train in morning and night. So in the mornings, as I said to you earlier, when they message me and say, "I want to train," they've got to come and train my way. So 5 o'clock, we're up running, hail, rain, shine, whatever. And it was winter then too. So 5 o'clock runs along Merriweather. That's not so much of a bad thing, Merriweather Beach, running 4 or 5 Ks in the morning, and then would have a dip in the ocean, in the ice cold. And then we'll go and have a coffee, and then we'll come back and train in the afternoon. So, we end up getting down to about 127 in fight time, which is good. Even though it's 10 months, it was a good time to just shred that naturally off, rather than kill him to do it.
Yes.
And that's how it all eventuated, with him calling me, and we started, and then COVID started. But then obviously, Tuivasa, he was in Sydney, and he was doing the same thing. Obviously him and Mark have been like family for 15, 20 years as well. And he said, "Hey, Filthy, you got Mark up there training. Can I come up and train with you?" And that was, purely just to lose weight, and just really while COVID's on, get him out of the area that he's in, so he can just focus on himself and training. So, for 2 months, 3 months, Mark, myself, my brother, Ty, and he done that for 2.5 months, and that was one of the agreements for my brother to come in on the boxing side on the fights as well, because my brother's been hanging with and learning from Jeff Fenech for 10 or 12 years, and I know even when I'm coaching alongside my brother, he sees a lot of things in boxing that I don't see, and I'm open to that. I'm like, if he's seeing it and then correcting it, at least I can see it, then I can correct it, and that really goes the Fenech style that we have. Mexican walk-up style is more beneficial for me, with not just coming from boxing, but going back to the MMA side too. So hips are low and everything else. So that works out good. It's a great team and a great sort of combination where the fundamentals right down to the last bit is my brother. And then if I've got to branch out and do the kicking and elbow and all the rest of it, that's when I go outside of that side.
Sure.
So it was a good team that we formed, and we went hard for, as I say, like for 2 months while Ty was up here, and then 10 months overall.
So do you structure up you're the coach, like in what I'm trying to get at is you're the coach, you structure it up. So you had your morning and afternoon sessions, but the angle I'm alluding to now is whether it's a Mark Hunt and all the above that you've worked with, how is your language to them on what coaches focus on with athlete, or even semi-pro fighters that I've got in the dojo? Are you heavy on the discipline, the accountability, the ownership? What are some of the things that you were?
It gets to a point with different fighters. Yeah. Because you got Mark Hunt, who's been around for 25 plus years and who is an icon of combat sport in general. So I'm not going to, when he's going to earn the money he is for fighting, I'm not going to change any discipline he's got. I'm going to tell him what I want him to do. Sure. And if he wants to do it, he'll do it. I can't teach him how to fight because the dude knows how to fight. Sure. It's for the structure, more for me was knowing what Gal does in habits. Okay. So I put my brother in there to do the pad work in the afternoon with him. While I sat there, I watched, could see things when my brother couldn't see things with footwork, and I'd correct him and whatever. But my brother would have the game plan, so to speak, because I know he was training Gal at one stage, like on the pads. Okay. And we've watched footage on Gal. We knew what his habits would be. There was 3 or 4 main habits all the time. And then I go, okay, well, I got robbed on the pads. I sort of become a coach overlooking everything. I've got a structure. Okay, tomorrow we've got strength conditioning. So we're going down to a gym, strength and conditioning for 2 days a week, Tuesday, Thursdays with that coach. That coach said, yeah, I'm on board. Then I get a hold of the TikTok nutrition and the fight dietitian. So you guys, can you supply food to us? Yep, no worries. So all these avenues, I'm sort of putting the puzzle together to try and build. Some coaches would go, yep, I'm just coaching, I'm doing everything. And then obviously they just, they don't probably produce the best that they probably can do, or they may, depending on what their methods are. Sure. But I just found if I overlooked everything, I got my brother involved with the hand side of things, me with the fitness side of things in the mornings to lose weight and keep him motivated, to basically babysit him to make sure we're getting stuff done. Strength conditioning, food, dietitian, the doctor, everything's sort of like a puzzle I've got to put together each day or each week to make sure it's all working for that camp. Yeah. And a nice way of putting it, because the transition of now you can vouch for it because you've seen it firsthand being at Jackson Winklejohn. Now, let me just pull a number out. Let's say 5 years, but you could say more, where the Jackson Winklejohns and the Riches out there understand the game of, tactics, strategy, fundamentals, where we move, where we go. Then all of a sudden, came this nutrition, came this strength and conditioning, and specialists in it. Absolute, like the years of having to study that, for then you to add that onto your plate is like, well, no. So that evolution, or that way that and Jackson Winklejohn and many others led the way, didn't they? 100%, and they still do. There's a lot of you got Jason Perillo, who's in the rooted in LA, who's Bisping's and Tito's old coach, who's a great dude. I love that dude. Yeah, he's awesome. Pat, who's the founder of Rufus. You got these guys who are jiu-jitsu, who are striking, and Perillo with his boxing. Winklejohn with his kickboxing, come hands and knees and elbows. Greg Jackson with the strategy. And I spent so many years with Greg Jackson and Winklejohn over there, you know, I seen how they do it. I seen how they study. I seen it's not a team of just them two. You know, they've got the boxing coach, they've got the Brandon Gibsons, the other striking coach, they've got Winklejohn, they've got Greg Jackson, they've got a Muay Thai coach, they've got this coach, Jiu-Jitsu coach, Gracie Barra, boys over there. So that's why I had no problem with it, because my biggest thing and my brother's biggest thing is stay in your own lane.
Sure.
You know, if you're good at your thing, you stay in that lane.
Yes.
You know, you've got the fighters, you know, we know a lot, like a lot of the fight, like Tim Zhu, we know he's sort of management crew, and he used to manage Costa as well. They know that they're the managers and they're the promoter side of things. They don't got to dabble into, okay, you want me to hold pads and tell you how to do it. They've got ego to do that. Letting go of your ego and your pride. Then you go, okay, now I can give this athlete, whether they're just starting out in this world of combat sport, or it's Mark Hunt, who's been in the pinnacle of his career for so many years, you can let go of all that and go, okay, now I'm going to form the best team, to get the best out of that person. And, you know, yes, you're going to have lots of obstacles along the way, but that's like any job that you go on. You walk in the office job tomorrow, and there could be there's going to be hurdles that you've got to come across. So when you've got a team to do that, even though it's a lonely sport with that person going into the ring on cage to fight by themselves, they've got a whole team that's behind them, that's giving them like robotic education, what they want them to do. If they can't pull the trigger and finish that off, then that comes back onto the coaches. To me, that comes, the losses, as Greg Jackson, where I get it from, Greg Jackson says losses are for the coaches and the wins are for the fighters. Because, if your fighters lose, then where did we go wrong? What happened here?
Okay.
You can all say, oh, the fighter didn't do this, the fighter, where did it go wrong? So when you've got that open mind of coaching, you will start to get blessed in a lot of ways of opportunities and getting to hang around a lot of different people in the world to go, wow, I've just learnt that. And even some things Winklejohn, I used to see him do on pads, and I'll be like, man, that looks like it's back in the 1970s. Doesn't even work in the real time. But then when you're teaching that in the MMA scene, wow, that's so relevant. If it was in just a normal kickboxing, it may not have worked. But it's MMA. It's completely, people think MMA is just, you get a Muay Thai coach, and a Muay Thai coach comes into an MMA gym and goes, yep, this is how you strike. This is the only way how to strike. So when they get taken down and wrestle all the time because they're too high in a Muay Thai stance, then they go, oh, well, that must have been his fault. So MMA striking is completely different all round to basically what Muay Thai boxing, Kyokushin. Because what a real coach, a striking coach in MMA has done is taken every combat, whether it's Muay Thai, boxing, Kyokushin, Zambo, whatever you call it, Zandukai, and put it all into a striking method. That's the MMA striking. So that's more complicated than what just the individual striking to me.
Yeah. No, well put, Coach. That's awesome. And, for listeners there, if you haven't stopped for a moment to kind of comprehend, the puzzles of being the facilitator of, your students, and that's another side of it. I'm very passionate. I've got a team of fighters here, and what I love is that, in Kyokushin, you have blue belt who's raw, strong, raw, has certain traits. Then you have the green brown who's like, listen, I'm putting this together now and I'm enjoying it. When's full contact happen? Oh shit. Yeah. Now you're going into that, and I'm loving that. I've loved that side for many years. And then as you're familiar with Kyokushin, it's, oh, is there a weight division in this tournament? And then all hell breaks loose there, doesn't it? It's open. If I'm over 85, am I fighting a 99 kg guy? Maybe, don't know. Does it matter? Does it matter? And then, I've got to transition the language there. So it's all out there.
One Kyokushin icon who mastered that was Kenji Midori. that dude, man, like he would come up against 120 kilo dudes. I think what did he weigh? 70 something kilo or something.
Yeah.
And he used to
under.
put him away. That's a legend. That.
And what stands for that is
a chest.
And what stands for that is, in that example, and for everyone out there, is the oh well, it can't be done, or the saying, oh well, that's impossible. No, it's been done, so it's possible.
Yeah, 100%. And that's again, it gets back to just how open your mind is and what belief someone has about themselves, but not just belief about themselves, but what great team they've got behind them to make them believe they can achieve that. And for example, Conor McGregor, like perfect example, John Kavanagh, you got some of the Irish greats of the martial arts side. And I'm just trying to Matt. I'm just trying to think of his last name. Matt Thornton, his name is, and how I know him. He was John Kavanagh's original coach.
Okay.
He's the one who invented the straight blast gyms.
Awesome.
So when you read John Kavanagh's book and he's talking about this Matt Thornton all the time, and I'm like,
yes.
Who is Matt Thornton? I actually went, to Twitter, to Instagram, to his website, everyone, and I hit him for information on what he, how he used to coach,
awesome.
Coaching and his methods, right? He sent me so many links.
How good.
And I printed them all off, and I've still got them in the box. And his biggest thing was it was like real. Everything you do and that's where more Kyokushin. It's like Kyokushin's real. You've got no pads on. Yes, you don't punch to the face, but still you can kick to the face. You can knee to the face. Kyokushin's the most real for me in a lot of sports that I've been around, because, man, it's bone on bone, skin on skin, and man on man or woman on woman, and there's no protection. You got to stand there, and it's the first one who drops.
Yeah.
You're done. But just his whole philosophy, which I've taken into my philosophy, is
his
biggest thing was movement, timing, and energy. When you can start learning and studying those three things, you get to see everything. You get to see, okay, the movement. How has our movement got to be? Timing. Where's the movement got to be for the timing? And then at the last bit, when the movement's right and the timing's right, that's the energy part. How do I put that energy into play?
Yes.
And a good example, one of obviously everyone's idol is Bruce Lee, who could do the movement, the timing, and the energy was only a smidge of an energy, but he would knock someone over, from a 6-inch punch. So people like that, and martial artists who I idolise, they were way before their time. We're in 2021, and we're still puzzled in all this, and yet they were doing it back in the 60s, the 50s. It's a crazy journey, martial arts, and that's why I probably love it so much, because one, these days I earn money to wake up and do this every day, and I'll never ever learn everything. So until I'm on me every day going, man, this is how good this. I've just learned something. I've been this game for nearly 30 years. I've just learned something off a beginner today.
Yeah.
That's what's a motivating factor when you become a coach. You take over that role as a coach.
You just summarised our chat perfectly then, for all of us out there to take that in mind and keep that in perspective. I appreciate that immensely. Coach, we've got about 5 or so minutes left. Love for you to talk to us about if you wish to, mate. And if you'd love to, about your next project here that's coming in Melbourne. I mean, get everyone out there, my listeners and everyone out there that gets a chance to hear this.
Melbourne, I'll be back and forward from Melbourne from pretty much now till April. We're hoping to open the new gym in April come May. Mm-hmm. It will be Brooklyn Fitness Centre, and it's based in Brooklyn, just near Yarraville and on the Geelong Road. So Brooklyn Fitness Centre will be at the front, and then we'll have the Brooklyn Boxing Club that's at the back. So in the next 3 months, I'll be back and forward to Melbourne. Hopefully this COVID borders, things can sort of start easing up and we can get free reign back and forward. But that'll be the main venture. I'll be doing a lot of promotions with my brother and Brian Matruder at the Pavilion.
Unreal.
In just playing boxing. I'm going to try and reach out and with Dan Kelly, Jimmy Cruz, Sam Greco, Jake Matthews, all the guys that I've known for a lot of years and work with Jakey, and I'm friends with Sam. So if I'm needed in any capacity of a different thought or a different view, I'm going to be at their beck and call, because obviously the MMA striking is a real passion to me. But I really have found over the last few years boxing as well. Without good hands, not much creativity happens. So I've sort of adapted, and I'm learning more about the fundamentals of the fine art of boxing. But the MMA striking, again, I'm still learning that. But over my journeys, I've sort of put the Kyokushin, the Muay Thai, the boxing, the ring karate all into my style. Brooklyn Fitness Center.
Excellent.
So hopefully.
So check that out, everyone, and we'll get a bit further. So
in April or May, I'll be
full steam ahead. Full steam ahead.
Nice.
No, well done. So for listeners out there, again, I've been following Rich via Instagram, and more so a message from me, Coach, is I love it. It was awesome to just have, see the pictures and the side of things and what you're doing with Mark. And again, the fun side, it was, what I mean? Like, we're all, we might be talking on behalf of myself here, but, we get the backstage side of, the, what's it called? The 24/7s and these types of things. And you see the intensity and the seriousness of what's happening.
Yeah.
But Jesus, there's got to be some cool fun side to it. There's got to be some enjoyment behind it. There's got to be that energy. And I love seeing that from you as a coach. It motivates me as well to just also keep the angle of, there's business and there's, fun and making sure that balance is there. So thank you so much. So to the listeners out there, you got your Instagram, you've got your gym approaching soon. So, what a great chat. We really appreciate it.
No worries, mate. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
So everyone out there, thanks, Rich. Big us from me. And there's our first episode of the Coaching Forever, Forever the Coach. And thank you so much. I've always wanted to chat to you on this level and to get some basic insights. And you shared a lot with us that gives us, I feel, and gave me that perspective of, there's glitz and glamour, but there's also the side of, hey, man, you've got to put in the work. You've got to be up at 5. You've got to do this. You've got to make sure that,
all dedication.
Yeah, good on you. And thank you for sharing your story with Muhammad Ali and all the above. Big ups to you. All the best. We'll stay in touch. And when your gym's back up and running, love to get you back on in a way of just, all the above. Big ups. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, mate.
Good on you.